When war broke out in Europe, it arrived with a terrifying intensity and a clear warning. The United States and NATO allies have issued a final warning to Russia on the invasion of Ukraine. Let's investigate further. Hey guys, welcome back to our channel, Warzone. In today's video, we are going to tell you about the US and NATO allies' final warning to Russia. But before we get started, make sure you subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any of our incredible videos. President Vladimir Putin defied international criticism and sanctions by laughing at wide-ranging attacks on Ukraine, warning foreign countries that any attempt to intervene would result in consequences you have never seen. Large explosions were heard in the capital of Kyiv, Kharkiv in the east, and Odessa in the west, according to Ukrainian border guards who released footage of what they said were Russian military vehicles moving in. Ukrainians left various cities as the Russian military claimed to have destroyed Ukrainians' entire air defenses in a matter of hours, and European officials classified Ukraine airspace as an active war zone. As global financial markets plummeted and oil prices skyrocketed, world leaders lamented the commencement of a long-awaited invasion with far-reaching effects. Russia's activities have the potential to result in widespread casualties, topple Ukraine's democratically elected government, and upend geopolitical and Europe's post-Cold War security balance. After weeks of unsuccessful diplomatic efforts, governments from the United States to Asia and Europe prepared new sanctions, but global powers have stated they will not intervene militarily to rescue Ukraine. President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine has proclaimed martial law, claiming that Russia has targeted Ukraine's military infrastructure, even as Ukrainian officials reported artillery barrages and airstrikes on locations around the country. Ukrainians who had been bracing for an invasion were told to stay at home and not panic. Putin justified his actions in an overnight television address, claiming that the attack was necessary to protect civilians in eastern Ukraine, a false assertion that the US had anticipated he would make as a pretext for an invasion. He accused the US and its allies of neglecting Russia's demands for security assurances and to prevent Ukraine from joining NATO. He also stated that Russia does not seek to invade Ukraine, but rather will work to demilitarize the country and bring criminals to justice. The attacks came first from the air, but later Ukrainian border guards released security camera footage Thursday showing a line of Russian military vehicles crossing into Ukraine's government-held territory from Russian-annexed Crimea. On February 24, 2022, Moscow launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine after military maneuvers near the border. It had previously denied any such intention. It had been blaming Kyiv of worsening the conflict in the Donbass and the West, of urging Ukraine to do so by taking sides in a partisan manner. It made plain what it wants in two drought treaties in mid-December 2021, specifically blocking further NATO expansion to the east and securing Biden commitments to that purpose. It is doing so by invoking the 1990s NATO-Russia agreement. Moscow has expressed concerns that Ukraine's membership in NATO, in particular, would jeopardize Russia's security and geopolitical balance with the United States. The US and NATO had indicated a readiness to talk about arms control issues, but they were not willing to change the European security order's fundamentals. Moscow understandably did not accept this and resorted to force. It passed up the possibility to start a fresh discourse as a way to de-escalate the crisis and restore military predictability through arms control while remaining true to its values. Russia may be on the verge of invading Ukraine, according to US President Joe Biden and Secretary of State Antony Blinken, following an apparent failure to evacuate soldiers from its side of the border and charges of a probable false flag operation in Ukraine's east. Following reports of shelling in Ukraine's conflict-torn east, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg expressed alarm on Thursday that Russia was attempting to create a pretext for an assault. The war is about Ukraine's future. However, Ukraine provides a broader platform for Russia to restore its influence in Europe and the rest of the world, as well as for Putin to cement his legacy. For Putin, these are not insignificant goals, and he may decide that the only way to achieve them is to launch another incursion into Ukraine, an act that, at its most heinous, would result in tens of thousands of civilian deaths, a European refugee crisis, and a response from Western allies that includes harsh economic sanctions. The United States and Russia have set red lines that serve to clarify the situation. Russia presented the US with a list of requests, some of which the US and its allies in the North Atlantic Treaty Organization considered non-starters. Putin requested that NATO halt its eastward expansion and refuse Ukraine membership, as well as a reduction in troop deployment in countries that joined after 1997, effectively turning back the clock on Europe's security and geopolitical alignment by decades. According to Michael Kaufman, research director in the Russia Studies program at CNA, a research and analysis group in Arlington, Virginia. These ultimatums are a Russian endeavor not just to secure interest in Ukraine, but also to essentially mitigate the security architecture in Europe. The US and NATO, as expected, rejected such demands. Both the US and Russia are aware that Ukraine will not join NATO anytime soon. At the end of the Cold War, some leading American foreign policy intellectuals contended that NATO should never have pushed so close to Russia's borders in the first place. NATO's open-door policy, on the other hand, states that they can choose their own security partnerships. Accepting Putin's demands would give the Kremlin veto power over NATO decision-making and, by extension, the continent's security. Now the entire world is watching to see what Putin will do next. It isn't a foregone certainty that an invasion will occur, even while it warns of a military tactical response to stalled discussions. Moscow continues to deny any preparations to invade. However, if war breaks out, it might be terrible for Ukraine, with unforeseeable consequences for the rest of Europe and the West. Ukraine, a former Soviet republic, had the world's third largest nuclear arsenal when the Soviet Union disintegrated in the early 1990s. The US and Russia collaborated with Ukraine to denuclearize the country, and in a series of diplomatic deals, Kyiv returned hundreds of nuclear warheads to Russia in exchange for security assertions against a possible Russian assault. When Russia invaded Ukraine in 2014, those guarantees were put to the test. Russia grabbed the Crimean Peninsula and backed pro-Russian separatists in the Donbas region of eastern Ukraine. Russia's assault arose from widespread protests in Ukraine, which saw pro-Russian President Viktor Yanukovych deposed, partially over his abandonment of a trade agreement with the European Union, in symbolic actions that enraged Putin. U.S. ambassadors paid a visit to the protests. President Barack Obama, wary of further escalating relations with Russia, took his time mobilizing a diplomatic response in Europe and did not immediately deliver offensive weapons to the Ukrainians. A lot of us were really appalled that not more was done for the violation of that post-Soviet agreement, said Ian Kelly, a career diplomat who served as ambassador to Georgia from 2015 to 2018. It just basically showed that if you have nuclear weapons, as Russia does, you're inoculated against strong measures by the international community. However, the very concept of a post-Soviet Europe is fueling today's strife. Putin has been hell-bent on restoring some form of dominion that he believes he lost when the Soviet Union fell apart. Ukraine is at the heart of this vision. Putin has stated that Ukrainians and Russians were one people, a single whole, or would be if other forces such as the West had not intervened to establish a wall between them. Ukraine will not join NATO in the near future, according to President Joe Biden. Article 5 of the NATO Treaty states that any attack on NATO country is treated as an attack on an entire alliance, implying that any Russian military engagement with a hypothetical NATO member Ukraine would theoretically bring Moscow into conflict with the United States, the United Kingdom, France, and the other 27 NATO members. However, the country is the fourth largest beneficiary of US military aid, and intelligence collaboration between the two countries has grown in reaction to Russia's concerns. We sincerely hope you enjoyed the video. If so, give it a like and share with your friends and family. Let us know if you have any questions or comments in the section below. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to see more of our incredible videos. You can also watch our other videos that we have specially selected for you. We look forward to seeing you in our next video.